Welcome back to Baron's New Vegas Explosive Guide. This episode is dedicated to all those with their copies of the Anarchist Cookbook and the far superior but older TM TAC 31 TAC 210 Improvised Munitions Handbook. This is the Improvised Explosives episode, focusing on the value of placeable explosives. Now, most people might know that the original use of the internet was jokingly stated to distribute the Anarchist Cookbook, but the US Army had codified similar information for special operations use in the 31 series of the technical manuals, and in 1969, which was 2 years before William Powell came out with his cookbook. Both publications describe the process of making explosive devices with improvised materials or more commonly available chemicals than primary explosives, although one details far less dangerous methods for those chemical processes. The main ingredient of these two explosives to come is gunpowder, which these books at least give a recipe for black powder, which is not quite as potent. And in terms of Fallout history, the amount of improvised explosives and users is surprisingly low, even with the post-war world being full of conflict. But being that the war was in full swing in the moments before the apocalypse, there's a significant stockpile of military explosives. In fact, only Fallout Tactics approaches the subject with the Beastmasters using boom bugs, which is improvised at least in concept. But it wasn't until Fallout 3 that the idea and form of improvised explosives became more popular. This was in the memorable Bottlecap Mine, which became such a hot ticket item that many guides and walkthroughs point out the presence of these elusive lunchboxes, and as well as them being a fine collectible for lone wanderers. And why wouldn't they be so popular? The Fallout 3 Bottlecap Mine was an incredibly powerful weapon and very cheap to make, although the Fallout New Vegas version is far more reasonable and the balance department, but it makes it far less powerful and more resource intensive to make. For an improvised explosive, it is surprisingly powerful, more so than the military spec frag mines, but it is also a little bit bigger than a frag mine and packed full of shrapnel and explosives with the sensor device mounted externally. The other improvised explosive is the powder charge, used by the powder gangers as a static defense of their bases and the New California Republic Correctional Facility. In a strange utilization of resources, the Legion reveals that the powder gangers only use the gunpowder that's supposedly in the dynamite, wherever it is, to make these mines, and thus the name powder charge. The shrapnel comes from the tin can and the sensor module, although it lacks the power of all the dynamite sticks that go into it. But it is quite small and hard to see, which makes it a potent defense against the courier, but works against the player as NPCs don't truly care or patrol enough to get caught by the powder charge. But it is a very easy explosive to make. Damage-wise, the Bottlecap Mine is powerful. It does do 1 damage of impact and 200 damage from its explosion. It's wider than the average mine at 256 units, still a fourth of the radius of a rocket, but about 25% more than the frag mine. This does mean that it benefits more from the splash damage perk, but it is sad for Fallout 3 players because it used to do 500 explosive damage, more than any mine in New Vegas in the base game, but 200 damage is mostly overkill for humanoid targets. It takes 3 seconds to place one, leaving them more difficult to put all over. The powder charge, on the other hand, is very similar to the dynamite used to make it, 1 damage on impact and 75 damage in the explosion. However, instead of 750 units, the powder charge is like the frag mine at 192. Luckily, you can place one every second, probably due to the small size. The biggest issue is the explosive skill increasing the fuse on the mine, making them far more useful for the novice rather than the adept. However, in my testing, they've had very short fuses, and respond almost instantly to enemies that walk over them or are hit by them, which makes them smaller, slower, and far more controllable grenades. They do, however, interact very strangely with the Animal Friend perk, so beware. They don't seem to explode when a friendly animal has turned hostile. Now, being mines, they can't be used in VATS, and cannot crit, but they do prefer to cripple legs, making them good to deal an initial hit on fast creatures or people from around corners. With enough warning, they can stop a ghoul charge in their tracks. Now, I do have more good news about them, as they are both very much novice weapons. They require no skill to use and only 1 strength, meaning they are always available for use. They do need explosive skill to craft, although both weapons can be acquired by disarming mines out in the world space. For Bottlecap Mines, the courier needs an explosive skill of 75. They need 1 lunchbox, 10 caps, 1 sensor module, and 5 cherry bombs. This high requirement makes them powerful explosives, and when you can craft them, the shorter fuse makes them preferred to almost any other type of mine. The powder charge is significantly easier, but requires a schematic taken from Cell Block B in the NCRCF. But once you have that schematic, it only takes 10 explosives, 1 roll of duct tape, 1 tin can, and 1 sensor module with a whopping 2 sticks of dynamite. This low requirement and consistently low fuse time / impact behavior means the powder charge are good alternatives to frag grenades whenever the courier happens upon a stash of them, and reduces the chance of accidental suicide. Finally, the weight of both of them is only 0.5, which, as the ingredients weigh 4.6 for the powder charge and 3 for the Bottlecap Mine, these are by far the more compact form. As a point of note, the Gunrunner's arsenal does provide cheaper recipes with perks, but that will be discussed later on in a video. In terms of price, however, they can be bought, although not as commonly as ammo or frag weapons. Now, when you can buy it, the powder charge is 25 caps, with its ingredients costing 86. That's 50 for the dynamite, 30 for the sensor module, 1 cap for the tin can, and 5 caps for the roll of duct tape. Even with the cheaper recipe, the cost of ingredients is very expensive and hardly worth buying the pieces to make it. It is truly best made when you have found the parts and not bought them. The Bottlecap Mine, on the other hand, costs 150 to buy, and it's only 68 caps to build, with 25 caps going to cherry bombs and 30 caps to the sensor module, while only 10 go into the mine itself, and the rest, the 3, is for the lunchbox. Now sadly, dynamite is far easier to buy than the cherry bombs, and this keeps Bottlecap Mines limited in the courier's armory. Now luckily for the powder charge, it can be bought a couple of places, making a far cheaper alternative to a fast defense. Carter in Cell Block B of the NCRCF, Cliff and Novak, Blake at the Crimson Caravan, and Lacey at the Mojave Outpost stock them, and they can be disarmed around the Powder Ganger camps, with each camp having around 6 of them. The Bottlecap Mine is far better to sell, but is hard to get hold of the cherry bombs, except maybe the Westside Pawn Shop, Mix and Ralph's, Old Lady Gibson, but the Great Khan Armorer can sell the entire Bottlecap Mine, with Ranger Station Charlie being the only non-in-game location using an armed example. Now, in conclusion, these explosives can be useful, even more so than thrown explosives, for some people. Although with the reduction in the Bottlecap Mine potency, it doesn't hit with the same satisfying room-clearing explosion, but it does come alive in sewers or vault-like locations. The powder charge, on the other hand, makes for a safer way to toss around explosives, with its lower damage, but the small size makes it perfect for short tosses over barricades. Overall, the Bottlecap Mine is something for nostalgia of Fallout 3, while the powder charge is a way to introduce Fallout New Vegas' different way of crafting, but still using the Fallout 3 schematics. In a way, they are both callbacks to Fallout 3, but with ED being able to be used as a portable workbench, you can make these explosives almost anywhere, and they come out far better for it.